And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back to the Rock Newman Show. Before I go to my guest this hour, A. Scott Bolden, described as the quintessential K Street lawyer and many, many other ways, including that of a Washington, D.C. powerhouse. I want to share something with you all. The Rock Newman Show is working on a very, very interesting, and I think it's going to be impactful, Black History Month special. I'll tell you more about that. Just kind of want to tease you a little bit about it. But it has something to do with goings on of the over on the eastern shore of Maryland. And while I was over there this past week, I discovered a property. It's called the Inn at 202 Dover. They've become a part of the Rock Newman family, Rock Newman Show family. And on Friday night, November the 1st, they are having a 5-course Argentine wine tasting dinner. And I want to share with you that if you want some of the finest culinary experiences that you've ever had, if you want to please your palate, if you want to just absolutely satisfy your gastronomical desires, I'm telling you, they've got a restaurant over there that's called the Peacock Restaurant at the Inn at 202 Dover. And all of your dreams, all of your food dreams, your food and drink dreams will be realized at that particular property. Friday night, starting 6 p.m. It's a little bit of a drive, but it's a fun drive, and I'm going to tell you, it will be an experience like you never had before. You will thank me, and you will thank me again. See the owners over there and tell them that Rock Newman sent you. And now back to the man of the hour, A. Scott Bolden, Esquire, Managing Partner, ReedSmith, quintessential K Street lawyer, D.C. powerhouse. But before we get into any of that, through sources not to be named, I was told of this. First of all, let me just say, this handsome gentleman, to those of you in the live audience and those of you viewing around the world, he's off the market. He's no longer eligible. I'm putting his business in the street.
He's breaking rule number one.
Man rule number one.
Man rule number one.
He engaged. He ain't eligible no more. Now, there's more to that story. Not only is he not eligible, he got uneligible. He got ineligible in a very extraordinary, romantic, fantastic way. And we break news on the Rock Newman Show. So I want you to tell chapter and verse how you got engaged.
That's really your first question.
Yeah. That's where we started.
After that intro. Well, you know, my engagement to Erica Martin, who used to be on the Housewives of D.C., she wasn't a housewife of D.C., but she was best friends and still is best friends with Stacey Turner, who was the only African-American member of that cast. The engagement coincided with my 50th birthday, and my friends know how much I love Veuve Clicquot champagne. So
what's it called?
Veuve Clicquot.
Veuve Clicquot.
That's right.
For the uninformed.
The yellow label. So she planned this incredible trip for my 50th birthday. I'd never been to Paris. I'd never been to south of France, and it had kind of been on my hit list. And so we went, and for my birthday, June 8th of last year, and one of the stops on kind of the trip was the vineyard, the Veuve Clicquot vineyard, where they actually make the champagne, and it's a historical site. And I mean, they got bottles of this stuff that they found in the Titanic. If you go down where they store the wine in the cellars, so it was a prophetic moment, if you will. It was almost a religious experience for me just to go. And so while we were there, I had a ring. I had bought a ring. I planned on getting engaged, but I hadn't figured out the right time or place. And so that seemed to be as good a place as any, because when you have this ring on you, and I kept thinking I had to get it through customs without her seeing it. Right. So I was hiding it. And then when we got to the room, I was still hiding it. Now, if she's like anybody else's woman or wife out here, you know, they have a sixth sense on. They just do.
And eighth and
I know,
yeah.
whether you acting wrong or acting right, they got a sixth sense. And so, you know, she starts going through the bags and stuff. And at one point, I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, leave my stuff alone." You know, because the ring was right there in the case and stuff. So ultimately, I said, I got to keep this ring on me because, you know, I'm from D.C. I don't mean to sound wrong, but I keep thinking if I lose this ring or if I get jacked in Paris somewhere and say, I had a ring, I was going to propose to you, but somebody stole it, she'd never believe me.
That wasn't going over
That
well.
wasn't going to go over well. So in any event, we got to the Veuve Clicquot Vineyard. We did this great tour, and at the end, they put you in this lounge, and we were there with a couple of friends, and so she went to the bathroom with her girlfriend who was with us, and then so they opened up some Grand Dame, like the Grand Cru of that ended the tour and stuff. And so me and my buddy are there, and so I take the ring and I put it in the champagne glass. And so the glasses are there, so when they come back, I don't say anything, and he doesn't say anything, and we lift the glasses, and we start toasting, because it's been a great tour. And so finally she says, you know, I think there's something in my champagne glass. We better take this back. There's something in it. Yeah. And so she called the waiter over, or our maitre d' and stuff, and the maitre d' wouldn't take the glass, and so he whispers to her, you should take a little closer look, in French, because she speaks French. Yeah. You should take a closer look. And she took a closer look, and, you know, it was in the champagne glass, and so she got...
Can I get a high five up in here?
Well, it doesn't stop there, because after that, I said, baby, I love you, and, you know, I want to marry you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you, right? Yeah. And so she said, aren't you forgetting something? I said, no, I'm 50 years old. I bought that ring, and I'm over in Paris. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, that's a whole lot. Yeah, that'll be good, right? And she said, nah, you know, I'm a traditional girl.
Oh, mercy.
She said, you got to get on one knee.
Come on. You got the genuflex.
I said, can I do that later? Maybe back at the room or something, I'll get on one knee. She said, no, I want you to do it right now. I want A. Scott Bolden to get on one knee and ask me to marry him. I said, baby, you've been married once, I've been married once. We got to do that. We know how to drill on this thing is. You know, we're partners now. She said, you got to get on one ring. I said, you going to get a ring back? She said, no, but you got to get on one ring. And so I'm in one knee. Right. And so I got on one knee and proposed, and then she embraced, and it was complete. So that's the story.
Scott, that's A. Scott Bolden. That's the first question, and that's the first answer, in case y'all wanted to know. Scott, okay, let's go from that, from that glorious experience. You have had a cadre of clients that you've had to represent. It seems like when people get in trouble, one of the first people they call in the Washington, D.C. area, because of a sterling reputation that you have gained for admirably representing your clients, they call A. Scott Bolden. And you had a client that was a member of Washington's football team. We don't say the R word here at this table, if, you know, unless it slips out sometimes. But we try not to say that R word that we strongly believe should be changed and will be changed. But his name was Albert Hainsworth. And he was accused of fondling a waitress, and there was some sort of effort by the waitress to... Did she file a lawsuit against him?
She did not.
She did not.
She did not, which was one of the more interesting points, prologue to the criminal case.
So tell us about that. Albert Hainsworth perhaps is one of the more persona non grata individuals that ever played for that team. He came in, good for him. He made a rack of money, and people think that he made that money more laying down than he did playing the game. Tell us about that case. How did he come to you, and how did you handle that case?
Well, you know, his business manager, real estate broker, when he came to Washington, was a good friends with a young woman who I used to date in New York. And while we were no longer dating, the three of us continued to be friends, and two of them lived in New York. And so I had met Albert when he first was signed by the Redskins. Two of them and Albert had come to a friend's birthday party. And so we left the birthday party with him and his friends, and I kind of took him around Washington socially that evening. We stopped at a couple clubs. We went out to Mark's club when he owned Love, had a great time. Really nice guy, quiet, rather shy, actually. If you really want to know the truth about it, you probably would agree that a lot of celebrities that you socialize with or meet or work for or with, a lot of them are shy. They're not cocky or arrogant or aloof like maybe the media may portray them. Some are, but not all. And so he and I didn't really stay in touch. Every once in a while I get a text from him, and I text him back and stuff. He had a question about Washington and stuff. But other than that, I was a fan, actually. I was looking for big things to happen and looking for great things to happen with the team. And so I got a call at about 2 or 3 in the morning from his business manager. I didn't really pick it up until 6 or 7 in the morning. I was knocked out. But when I got up, returning that phone call connected me to him, his agent, as well as some of the team executives about what had occurred that morning at the W Hotel. And so, you know, when you first get involved in a case, the facts are fast moving. The first set of facts that you get from whether it's your client or the witnesses around you or their supporters or their team is probably not true, not accurate. Sure. I can't say true. It's not accurate. There's a lot of moving parts and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing was, even on the weekend, it was Sunday, getting everybody in one room and finding out what happened that night. You know, he was there with family members. He was at the W. Clearly, they had been socializing. We've been celebrating someone's birthday. And the original allegation was that he had tried to pay his bill, and as part of paying his bill, he had put this credit card that he was going to use to pay the bill inside her scantily clad outfit, in her bra area, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Near her breasts.
Near her breasts, as we would say. Okay. And so you know, nobody really disagreed with that had occurred, and they were socialized, and there was a fair amount of liquor involved. But at some point in time, the evening turned wrong. That is, that the waitress became offended and reported it to her managers, and the managers had a conversation with him and his entourage, and eventually they would leave. He wasn't under arrest, but he would come back. They asked him to come back because the police were there, and they were going to open up an investigation. There was no violence associated with any of this. This was kind of like an incident that had kind of gone bad, if you will. Not justifying it whatsoever. But I'm going to put a pin in that thought about justification. And so he comes back, he's interviewed by the police, and they let him go. Some 3 to 4 weeks later, after many discussions with the U.S. Attorney, he's indicted on a misdemeanor, which is kind of unheard of, and he's accused of sexually abusing, excuse me, this waitress. Now, as negotiations would go, we prepared for trial, and, you know, listen, you know, as I said, the facts changed. Our best defense in that case became consent versus mistake. Mistake being that he never did that or she misunderstood, but it became consent for 2 reasons. One, we interviewed several witnesses that the waitress had talked to before, who confirmed that it was consensual, but she felt that it had gone too far. Mm-hmm. Again, not justifying it, but the 2 of them had some banter. She indicated it was okay to put the credit card there, and her allegation essentially was that he had gone too far. He had put it there, but it had gone too far. Well, I'm not sure how you split hairs. But the other interesting fact about that case, and this kind of turned the case in many respects. By the end, I don't think the government or the NFL or the Patriots, which were the team he was at the time, or his agent wanted us to try the case. We could have won that case, actually. I'm about to tell you why. We could have won that case, but we would have spent 3 to 5 days arguing about consensual touching in a public place by an NFL football player. And so you can understand the PR ramifications of that. What we would learn through subpoenas is that in the W Hotel employment manual, the waitresses who work the upstairs rooftop as well as other parts of the restaurant.
Well, just to give you a kind of visual, it's the restaurant here in Washington, D.C. When you go up on the rooftop, it actually looks over into the courtyard and the grounds of the White House.
That's right, it does. And Treasury.
Right.
And Treasury, okay? But this is an employment manual for all W folks, W employees, at least who work at this hotel. And it says that you are to encourage and socialize with high-profile individuals to encourage larger tips, if you will. And so if that's the case, and that was the case, coupled with the individuals who we had talked to who said that she said it was consensual, but he had gone too far, that's more than enough to fully defend. And so ultimately, the case resolved itself. It was ultimately dismissed, and no civil suit was filed. And so that's how that case got resolved. But it took a lot of advocacy, a lot of hard work. Yeah,
and interestingly enough, it was a high-profile case for a while, and you've had your share of those. We're going to talk more about that when we come back on the Rock Newman Show after these brief messages.
Thank you.
My baby drives a Pohanka.
The weekend is here, and no matter what the weather's like outside, you'll find the deals inside here in the beautiful showroom of the all-new Pohanka Hyundai in Capitol Heights during their giant Markdown Madness sale.
Smart shoppers know that every new Hyundai in Pohanka comes with Hyundai Assurance and America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. But why don't you tell them about the Markdown sale, Joe?
I'll be happy to, Kim. Folks, shop around on the web, and you'll see lease payments on a new 2013 Elantra GLS at $179 a month. Today at Pohanka Hyundai, $99 a month. That's right, a $99 payment on a brand new Elantra.
And $89 a month on a new 2013 Accent GLS Automatic. How do they do it, Joe?
It must be the volume, Kim. A brand new building, hundreds of new Hyundais, and Pohanka's low payment and easy credit programs are designed to get everybody driving. But you have to get here today. Rush to the giant Markdown Madness sale at exit 13 off the Capitol Beltway.
Pohanka Hyundai, king of the Beltway. All financing for a limited term on approved HMF credit.
My baby drives a Pohanka.
Hello to all my friends in the DMV. I am Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show. I want to tell you about the MGM Grand National Harbor, the most exciting project to come to the District, Maryland, or Virginia in quite some time. You're going to have great fun. Come on down, support this project with all you have. It is going to be wonderful for the area. We're going to increase our tax base. We're going to get funding for the police department, for ambulance, for fire, for education. It is really a project that is going to benefit our area. Folks, we want to support in a very strong DMV kind of way this great project from the MGM Grand National Harbor.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back to the Rock Newman Show. We are broadcasting live from the Langston Hughes Room at Busboys and Poets, 14th and V Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. We are a Washington, D.C. based program, and we love that fact. We love all things Washington, D.C., and we're exporting it and Washington, D.C.'s culture to the world. And we have in studio with us this hour one of Washington, D.C.'s most prominent icons. He is A. Scott Bolden, Esquire, Managing Partner at ReedSmith. ReedSmith is often called the quintessential K Street law firm, and A. Scott Bolden is referred to as the quintessential K Street lawyer. I find him fascinating for his legal brilliance, and also really some of the transparency of the man. And to the extent that I might go here, well, we talked about the wonderful personal story of how you got engaged. I just thought that was a fun and wonderful thing for people to hear about. You know, lawyers don't always get the best reputations, but they're human. And I think that there's not much more human than about the next story I'd like to ask you to talk about. And folks, you know, oftentimes in our communities, there is the talk about the absence of the men in children's lives. And A. Scott Bolden went through an experience that, if I understand the story correctly, was a bit of a life-changing experience. I won't try to tell it. I'll ask you to share with our audience that particular story about a man and his daughter.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've written about finding my daughter Shayla at 19.
She was 19.
She was 19 when I found her, and when I met her for the first time. I had a relationship with a young woman while I was in the fraternity at Morehouse, and while she and I were not a one-on-one committed relationship, I was aware that she had gotten pregnant. And I had reason to believe that I was not the father, and I was told at one point that I was not the father.
Told by the mother?
By the mother,
Uh-huh.
okay? And I was also told that it didn't matter because she was not going to have the child. And, I mean, for a young man at 19 years old at Morehouse College, you know, that's kind of a lot to sort through. Again, no excuses, but my understanding as I left school my sophomore year that there was going to not be an issue whatsoever. And as it turned out, about 6 months later, I was told that not only had Shayla's mom had her, but that I in fact was the father. And so that started a kind of a odyssey of not only denials, but of delays on not just my part, her part, my part, in regard to resolving whether I was Shayla's father or not, or whether we were going to do anything about it. Over 19 years, I think both of us made excuses about it. Both of us said, fine, let's get the test done and let's move forward at various times. Those tests never took place, and it probably was irresponsible on both of our part, but you know, when you're 19 and 20 and 30 years old, it's safe space to make excuses about responsibilities. And so this was an issue that always stayed on my mind, but I never did anything or acted on it to resolve it, because if her mother wasn't making any moves about it, I was never asked for child support or anything, then it was just kind of out there. Well,
and in your mind, it was still a real question about whether you or not you were the father.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But you know, now I'm 50, and when I met my daughter when she was about 10 years ago. I know looking back, that's simply not good enough.
Sure.
That men have to stand up and take responsibility, and not knowing or there being some open question, you have the power to resolve that.
You got to close that gap.
That's right, you do. And you may not want to. It may be difficult. You may be embarrassed, but in the end, it's irresponsible if you don't. And so when my daughter graduated from high school, she was bugging her mother to meet me and to kind of close the loop on this thing. And her mother had kept scrapbooks of my legal career. My daughter knew who I was in Jersey. She knew that I was in law school. She knew that I graduated. She knew that I'd run for office. She knew all these things.
So you were here in Washington, D.C.
Right.
She was reared in New Jersey?
In New Jersey.
What part?
Oh, God, Trenton.
Trenton, okay.
We make it, they take it.
Yeah.
And so when her mom called me with her counsel, my daughter was 19. I had just come off a fairly difficult divorce. And, you know, when that call came, it's that call you get when you say, okay, now we're about to resolve some things. My life is about to get grounded.
It's
you know, you have those moments.
Real
That's right.
Up in here.
I also said to the Lord, I said, Lord, are you sure you're giving me all I can handle? Because I might be getting somebody else's too. You know, just give me what I can handle. And so he said, no, this is all you. You don't put it off. And now, you know, you finish with the divorce because you want to be a super lawyer in Washington. And now you're going to close the loop on this because, you know, we tee up everything in our life. We really do. Everything that's in your life that's good, bad, or ugly, you teed it up. If you think about it, you teed it up. You created your own demons, and I certainly created my share in my life. And so we took the test. I was confirmed to be her father, and then, you know, by then I had a long talk with my dad, who said, you know, Bolden men don't leave their kids, and you're not the first or the last man who's had this experience in our community or any community, and so now it's time to man up and do what you're supposed to do, because, boy, I raised you better than that, now that we know and now that you've shared this with me. And so
you took the test. Had you met her by this time?
No, not at all. I still hadn't met.
You took the test, you still hadn't met.
I hadn't met her. So then after taking the test and confirming paternity, then I start saying, well, I want to be in her life. I want to meet her. I've got 19 years to catch up. I'll never catch up on that. But if this is my daughter, this is my family, I got to be responsible, but I got to fall in love with this young woman who's my daughter. Now, naturally, if she's mine, there's a natural love there.
Sure.
But this relationship has got to get developed, and it's got to put some time in. It just doesn't happen by osmosis, and with the grace of God it happens, but I want to have a relationship. I call it guilt, call it love, call it responsibility, whatever it is, I've got to see my daughter.
Sure.
Well, they kept putting off me seeing my daughter. I mean, it was about a month or two. I kept saying, listen, I can be in Trenton this weekend, or you all can come to Washington, no problem. I'm here now.
3 hour drive.
That's
Three
right.
hour drive at the most.
So a couple months went by, and so finally, I got a call from her mom, who her mom was pregnant at 19 when she had her, and I got a call from her mom saying that my daughter Shayla, who was 19, was pregnant, and she did not want to meet me while she was pregnant, and so that was the delay. And so I told her mom, I said, let me tell you something. This has been 19 years. Whether her belly is swollen or not, whether she's got a love child with whomever in her belly, I've got to see her. And quite frankly, she needs me now more than ever. I mean, that was my view of the world. And so the NBA All-Star game in Philly, the last time it was there, I can't remember the year.
I was there.
I was there.
Probably 2001.
That's right. Yep. And I had a lot of friends who were there. We had a big suite. My buddies were there. I gave away my tickets. We had great tickets and stuff. And I gave away my ticket. I cleared the Admiral Suite. I got 24 roses. I got a bunch of chocolate and baby gifts. And they drove down or came down from Trenton. I put all my buddies out, and all my buddies knew what was going to happen this weekend, and other friends, and they were all very, very supportive of me. But, they all offered to stay in the suite and stuff, and I said, nah, fellas, I got to do this myself,
Sure.
My father said, hey, I know you're scared. I know you're fearful. I know you've never been down this road before, and I don't want you to do this alone.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna come out there and join you.
Yeah.
And I told my father that. I said, I gotta do this on my own too. I love you. I care deeply about what you think about me as a man. He's 80 years old. I still care about him.
Sure.
About what he thinks of me and my choices in life.
Sure.
He's a retired judge and a retired lawyer now in Chicago. And so, so they come to the door and I'm there. I mean, this is all written in the Washington Post magazine several years ago. Right. So this is nothing. This is a new story. I tell this story to young men all the time.
Sure.
Because they don't think, as a lawyer, K Street lawyer, that I could have a story like this.
Sure.
But I got a story like this, and and I'm not afraid to share it. And so they come to the door, and obviously, man, I got a million emotions going through. But my daughter and her mom are both there. And I open the door, and she's there, my daughter, her mom, and, my grandchild, to be, is there.
Sure.
And I just got to tell you, man, it was so natural. My daughter smiled at me, and she has a smile like mine, and she gave me a big hug, and, that was just it, man. It was just real. It was no tension. It was no negative energy. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was natural, man. It was just, I hugged my daughter. I rubbed her belly. I welcomed them in. We had dinner. Now, and for the first half hour, it was nothing but love. The next couple of hours were nothing but love either, but there were some difficult conversations that had to take place.
Questions and conversations.
And you know what? Let me tell you something. We took off all the masks that we got on.
Yeah.
We took them off.
Yeah.
We took off all the negative energy and said, let's be constructive about this.
Was that now just you and the daughter, or the mom was still there?
All three of us.
Okay, everybody was there.
By the way, I never had any negative energy towards her mom. Her mom will tell you to this day.
Yeah.
I never even asked her mom why she never, got the test or asked for child support. I never even asked any of that.
Yeah.
And it was weird because, as a lawyer, I could say, okay, we're about to play the blame game on this thing.
Sure.
But I didn't. And when I met my daughter, we talked. The hardest thing about meeting my daughter wasn't trying to explain what happened in those 19 years, because there was love and forgiveness there. The hardest thing for me was, how do I now when issues arise, or even in this initial discussion, I found myself trying to impart my values on her decision making.
So you are her daddy.
Yeah.
You're her father.
That's right.
Now you got to be her daddy.
And her grandfather.
And a grandfather.
And her grandfather.
Yeah,
That's right. Because in June of that year, my granddaughter Shanti was born, you know? And so we had these incredible conversations, and after two or 3 hours, they left. And I got to tell you, man, it wasn't just a burden off my shoulders, man. You know, I committed that day that, you know, all the things that money, power, greed, ambition, you name it, that drove me to be a partner in 4 years at a major law firm, to have a multi-million-dollar litigation practice, to be chair of the Democratic Party, to be chair of the Chamber of Commerce, to all these things, these accolades that we rest on in Washington and we're known for and we speak on. Yeah. All of those things still didn't make my life right. Yeah. Every time God called me, I put him on hold because I said, I got something else to do. Yeah. Before then, I don't think I gave him full credit. Yeah. I think I gave myself credit. And you can tell people who give themselves credit versus God credit for their success. And I got to tell you, man, after that, I've dedicated my life to authenticity, integrity. I obviously am much more faithful now, and I got a lot of work to do. So
let me ask
by building a relationship with my daughter and now my granddaughter.
If I can go back to that moment where you guys first met in that 2-hour period, what was the greatest expression of need that she shared? The need to know her father and to define her family. It wasn't money. In fact, my daughter never asked me for money in that meeting or any subsequent meetings, really. She wanted to know who her father was. You know, sociologists and family therapists say daughters define themselves by who their father is. Yeah. And it has a significant impact on them if they don't know who their father is. Sure. And so I told my daughter, I said, you know, I haven't been here for 19 years, but I desperately want to be in your life going forward. I want to love you. I want to be there for you. And we can't get those 19 years back, but we can sure enough add to those 19 years. And my daughter looked at me and she said, Daddy, I love you. I'd love to spend the rest of my life with you. And so we hugged before she left, and it was just so powerful and realistic. And I'm so blessed that was her reaction, because I could have got another reaction. And I thank God for her, my granddaughter, and all my daughters being in my life. Folks, A. Scott Bolden, and this is the Rock Newman Show. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Yeah.
This is Leprechaun Tim Pohanka from Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai. It's hard to be down on your luck when you're Virginia's first choice for new Nissan and Hyundais, but I need to sell 60 cars this week. Right now, I'll pay you big bucks for your good luck. Bring down any good luck charm you've gotten based on the sale price of the car you choose. I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car this week. Today, your lucky penny is worth plenty, up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car you want. Stop moping and hoping you'll get approved. With my For the People credit approval process, the banks are looking to get lucky and lend to you, even if you've been turned down before. Bring me any good luck charm and I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car today. Hurry, once I get rid of 60 cars, the luck runs out. All offers require bank approval, so call us at 1-800-POHANKA, visit Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai on Route 1 in Fredericksburg, or better yet, log on to TimPohankaForThePeople.com. And when we make a deal, I promise it'll be your lucky day. I'm Tim Pohanka, and I'm a leprechaun for the people.
Hello to all my friends in the DMV. I am Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show. I want to tell you about the MGM Grand National Harbor, the most exciting project to come to the District, Maryland, or Virginia in quite some time. You're going to have great fun. Come on down, support this project with all you have. It is going to be wonderful for the area. We're going to increase our tax base. We're going to get funding for the police department, for ambulance, for fire, for education. It is really a project that is going to benefit our area. Folks, we want to support in a very strong DMV kind of way this great project from the MGM Grand National Harbor.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back to the Rock Newman Show. I have K Street lawyer extraordinaire, A. Scott Bolden, and quite a man about town, a Washington, D.C. icon, someone who really just shared a story, a life-changing kind of story about uniting with a daughter that he had never seen in her first 19 years. That was a fascinating and riveting and impactful story. And Scott, a lot of folks do talk shows and do stuff like we're doing here, and they say, well, we don't really have any agenda. We're just here doing what we do. We have an agenda. Right. We have an agenda. We don't make any apologies for it. That's right. The tagline of my show is "We Are One," and what that is that's an aspiration, that's a dream. And when I talk about "We Are One," what I really mean there is we really are one. We come from one source. I recognize that we are not at that status yet. So it's an aspirational tagline, and each day we try to make the world a little better place to live. And I just want to say to you that the story that you told is the kind of stories that I believe that help make an impact to make the world a little better place to live. Sure.
I would say this, Rock, if there's one message in my story, and I share it all over the country when I've given the opportunity, that the message to young men, no matter how old you are, you can be 18, you can be 40, if you don't know, if there's some question, or and you're in denial because you and your baby's mother are not on the same page for whatever reason, it's irrelevant. It really is. It's irrelevant. And I know it's hard for young men generally to accept responsibility and to separate their children and the responsibilities that go with that as men and as fathers from their relationship with the mother. It's difficult, I know, but you got to do it. And you may not have the faculties to do it, but you ought to get help to do it, because that relationship with your kids, your daughters or your son, one, they need you. Two, you're going to define how they are and how they grow up as adults. But three, and most importantly, it is the most powerful and rewarding relationship God has blessed us with. You're missing that. You're missing that when you don't separate and define your relationship with your kids. Your absence will have impact. And so I don't think you can be faithful, spiritual, or have a relationship with a higher being, whatever you call him, God, Yahweh, Allah, and not accept that responsibility. For me, it came later. It's never too late. Sure. My daughter would tell me, it's never too late, Daddy. And we've got a thriving relationship now. It's as imperfect as any father and daughter relationship would be, but it's rooted in love, man. And it's so powerful, such a powerful blessing for it to be rooted in love, given what we've been through as a family. And so I work on it every day. So, and you talked about what are your accomplishments, what have been your involvements as head of the DNC chair, running for various offices, Chamber of Commerce. You've got a resume, and it is an extraordinarily impressive one. But it was that experience with your daughter that's when, if I'm hearing you correctly, it opened up a chamber in your heart, if you will, expanded who you are. You were a great and successful businessman, but that experience has helped make you a better person. Absolutely. Better person and better lawyer and better businessman. Because, Rock, I'll tell you, since that time, and my critics would argue against this, but my approach in my professional approach, my business, representing clients and stuff, let me tell you something, man. I am so authentic with them now. I mean, sure, I still get accused of being having quite an ego and being very ambitious and being my arrogance is legendary, if you will.
Yeah.
I got that part. But I got to tell you, I'm 10 times better now, and I don't take credit for my success anymore. I give all my success to my God, and it has changed my life for the better. Actually, I haven't lost anything by giving Him all that, all His blessings, giving honor to Him, giving me honor and all my blessings from Him. I've thrived. Yeah. You know, I've been more successful because of it.
You know, there's a joke around town that the former First Lady of Washington, D.C., Cora Masters Berry, and she's the one that tells the joke, that she's the one that made you famous.
Right.
Now, you know, there's a case study, though, in what I might call, and since this is unabashedly a Washington, D.C. show, it almost is a case study in sort of misguided government, going back to the time that the Fenty administration, the Adrian Fenty administration, was in power. God bless his soul. He is off now into the land of Steve Jobs' widow. So whatever he's doing, we wish him well. But he was the mayor of Washington, D.C., and there was a thriving, highly positively impactful institution that was established over in Southeast Washington, D.C., called the Southeast Tennyson Learning Center, that in essence, through his governance, was going to stand the success of that program on its head. It was misguided. I was involved with him professionally and personally as at the time, and it did everything that I could to advise him that he was making a mistake. And part of, you used that word, arrogance, part of his arrogance, which ultimately swept him out of office, kept him attempting not to shut the program down, but shut the program down as it is known, and sort of turn it over to an operation and individuals who wouldn't, in all of our wise estimation, had the continuing impact that it has now. Tell us about that experience, because you had to go up against the Fenty administration, his attorney general at the time. Tell us about that experience.
Well,
because it is sort of a real DC experience.
Yeah, it is. It was. You know, I never really understood it. I literally begged his advisors not to do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I begged him not to do it.
Yeah, I didn't beg him not to do it. I asked him not to do it because remember, I represented a lot of his most favorite government contractors at the time, and so there was a lot of dialogue about whether I would even take that case. But there was no doubt I was going to take that case pro bono. I had served on the board when we built the Southeast Tennyson Learning Center. I've been pro bono counsel to Cora Masters Berry and the center from its inception. I've represented Marion and his family over the years and stuff. And so there was no question I was going to take it. I won't say they asked me not to take it. They just kind of encouraged me not to take it. Let me just say that. And I remember telling one of their advisors, I said, you know, I've never commented on you all's leadership in the city. Why are you commenting on my legal representation? Yeah. And that kind of ended the story right there. But, you know, it was so unnecessary. It was gratuitous. And you know, this the center and the Recreation Wish List Committee that supports the center, they built it, they gave it to the city. You got black kids on computers and connecting it to tennis, and you've got nationwide support. And a lot of African American women, powerful or not, support Cora and this mission of passion of, you know, first time I went to the center, you see these black families walking down the street with tennis rackets coming to the tennis center. Yeah. You ain't seen that in that neighborhood or in Southeast ever.
And they cannot continue to participate with the tennis racket unless they get the grades right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they get on that computer and do that homework and
Right.
stuff. And so the need for that program was just incredible. And to argue that they didn't have a lease, to argue that their lease had expired, and to argue that their corporate their incorporation papers had expired, which, by the way, that happens all the time. And under the law, you refile your papers,
Sure.
you pay $20 or whatever much it is, and it is what we call nunc pro tunc, is if you had filed before.
Mm-hmm.
So once they corrected their paperwork and stuff, there was really no reason to let them to force them out of their lease. But the administration seemed to be hell bent on it. I begged the Attorney General not to litigate the matter. I was prepared to file my TRO, and before I filed, I never will forget, I called the Attorney General's office, I spoke to their lead litigator, I tried to get to Nathan and said, I'm about to file this TRO. Don't do it. Let's settle. Let's work it out. Let's resolve it. And there was silence on the other end of the line. And you know, as my mother used to say, she's not with us anymore, but she used to say to my father, you know, sometimes you just got to take them out behind the barn and beat their you know what. Mm-hmm. You can't talk sense into to idiots, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we filed the papers. They would call me back and say they needed time to respond and stuff, and that was fine so long as they weren't going to send the marshals in there to move the wish list out of this center. And remember now, what they didn't know was that 75% or more of everything that's in the Southeast Tennyson Learning Center was provided by the wish list committee or their vendors like Reebok and Nike and others.
Right.
And so if you went through, and we did this, we went through and tagged everything that was owned or provided by the Recreation Wish List Committee. There was nothing left.
The place would have been gutted.
It would have been gutted, if you will. It was just crazy what they were trying to do. And so then we went to court. We had an oral argument. And I never will forget, Dorothy Height came to the argument, and a lot of other elected officials and beyond Marion and African-American female elected officials who knew of this mission, supported this mission, and came to the argument. And I got to tell you, I've never felt more pressure.
Yeah.
No matter how good people think I am or am not or may or may not be, I got to tell you, with Dorothy Height
I was going to
there,
say, you don't want to sit. You don't want to be the one that's going to be the one that's just trying some kind of a case.
That's right.
That's going to disappoint Dorothy Height.
That's right.
You're talking about a moral authority.
and have those kids thrown out of that center.
My.
I got to tell you, though. And so, you know, I was just in a zone.
Yeah.
I mean, people were trying to talk to me outside the courtroom and stuff, and I was just sitting there like this. And they said, what's wrong? I said, I'm just getting ready.
Yeah.
I'm just getting ready because I kept thinking about scenarios. You know, you walk through your argument before you get into the well of the courtroom. Sure. And the scenario is, you know what? You win, it's going to be great. You lose, it's going to be awful. And so what's in the middle is you giving your best argument ever. Every argument, every time I'm in court, I want it to be the best I've ever been. Because what you've done lately is all is prologue. It's all past and stuff.
Sure.
And so whether it's pro bono or $800 an hour, you get 1,000%, and it's going to be the best argument and the best presentation I've ever given you. And hopefully every lawyer feels that way. And so I actually started slow. You know, I'm much better a counterpuncher in court than I am, you know, as the kind of the moving party.
Sure.
But it picked up quickly because the judge had a lot of questions. And in the end, the judge said, well, they got something over there. They may not have I don't know if they got a lease or not, but they're in the space. They only took up like 1,000 feet anyway, quite frankly. That was the lease, 1,000 feet.
Right.
And so eventually, so the court ruled from the bench in our favor and allowed them to stay. A week later, the administration came over to do the walkthrough, and we had tagged everything that was the wish list committees. And so I think it was like 80 or 90%. And so what we wound up doing, because once you won the hearing, you have another hearing called preliminary injunction. Well, both sides walked away from that, and they modified the lease without any substantive changes to it. When it was all said and done, all it said was we would do in our best efforts if we have any disagreements going forward. That was essentially the change in the agreement and stuff. And so I look back at my legal career, and that's the one case, and it was a high-profile matter, a lot of pressure. We won. God bless us for winning. Thank the Lord for it. But when you look back at your legal cases and representation, you still want to have merit to it, or that you made a difference, or that what you did, this case was about something. Well, sure, it was about the kids and righteousness and the values and expanding education and tennis and the Williams sisters support of the center and all that. But from a legal standpoint, I could not I still can't put my finger on why it was necessary, why I spent hundreds of hours keeping a program in place that was powerful on its face. Yeah. It made no sense. And to this day, it still doesn't make sense. But to this day, the wish list committee is there to get an award tonight at the D.C. Chamber Gala. God bless them. And congratulations to Cora, who was the visionary and founder behind it. But that was one of my favorite cases. But the time spent, I will never figure out why the government made me do that.
Yeah. And, you know, when they talk about the divine forces moving in very mysterious ways, ultimately, what I said, and I just will do this from this D.C.-based show talking about Washington, D.C.
Right.
stuff.
Right.
What I said to Adrian Fenty at the time, I said, Adrian, you are going to run into a public relations tsunami.
Right.
Do you know the impact of this? And I'm talking about, one, the right thing to do would be to keep that center as it is surviving, not only surviving, but help it thrive. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. And then let's get selfish, because I'm still a supporter of him at that time. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to talk about your political career, because this is could be the albatross. Mm-hmm. This could be the anchor that sinks your boat. And ultimately, it was a microcosm of just what sunk his boat.
Yeah, because you know, listen, Dorothy Heights' leadership and legacy of leadership didn't just appeal to black people in Southeast or black communities of color or communities of color around this country. I mean, let me tell you something. Her legacy of leadership is by all folks of all colors and races and gender. And so I got to tell you, the lack of respect felt by many, including Dorothy Height, Cora Masters-Berry, elected officials on the Hill, because remember, they were trying to get a meeting with him and Maya Angelou and others, and those meetings would not take place or did not take place for whatever reason. I'll just leave it like that. You know, people looked at that as, and people that don't look like us look at that and say, my goodness, he is disrespecting his own legacy of leadership and legacy of leaders, and how can we trust that leadership if his own community can't trust him, if you will? I think it had an impact on the re-election. I really do, and I'm a supporter. I'll be the first one. I'm a supporter of Adrian Fenty's. I don't know who I voted for, because I just don't remember. But I was a supporter because I did well by that administration. I think he did some great things for the city. But these decisions that were gratuitous and did not make sense were a problem, and I think in the end that cost him the election. You
know, as we talk about D.C. things here, you mentioned earlier representing Marion Barry. Marion Barry is in failing health. I saw Marion recently, and he clearly is in failing health. You and I could go on for another 3 hours. You got my show ends in 2 more minutes. You got an extraordinarily busy day, but in the 2 minutes that we have left, give us a Scott Bolden version of who Marion Barry is and what he's meant to this city.
Well, I think he's been a powerful figure, and has his stamp of leadership has been in every part of this city, regardless of what you think about him, whether you like him, you don't like him. He is Washington in a very powerful way. That's the first thing. You know, I've represented him and his family over the years, not as often as Fred Cook has, but I remember just when Marion calls, you know, I'm on K Street, and so many African-American lawyers are on K Street. So many African-American lawyers are in professional service firms, CPA firms, consultant firms, Wall Street bond firms, investment firms, because of Marion Barry, because of what he meant to the nation's capital and his drive to integrate and to help people of color make money, invest, succeed, and do well professionally within these organizations. Can't take that from him. I segment that with the arrest and the video,
personal frailties,
and all the personal frailties and so forth and so on. Got that part, but his legacy of leadership remains, and he may be on the council. You're right; he's failing health. I think ultimately the diabetes is going to catch up with him, like it does with all of us if you suffer from it. But we can never forget And Marion doesn't remind you, quite frankly, maybe privately he does, but not publicly. But he's had a powerful impact on black professionals in this city, and good, bad, or ugly, in the end, political scientists all over this country are going to study and teach his political comeback and his political legacy and his political leadership.
Two things. If A. Scott Bolden had not been an extraordinarily successful lawyer, what else would you have wanted to do? And at some point in time, we all meet that time, you know, thou dash. We're living the dash now, but when that dash comes to an end, how A. Scott Bolden want to be remembered?
You know, I'd be an actor. That's all I do in the courtroom. I love drama, and I couldn't go to performing arts because it was not academic enough. My father was a lawyer and retired judge. My mom was a college professor, administrator, and so they would have supported me in doing it, but I knew deep down it wasn't academic enough. So being a trial lawyer, like my dad was, and going to courtrooms with him over the years, I chose that because, you know, in the well of the courtroom, you're still performing. Yeah. So you get the academic and the performance. I think as far as being remembered, you know, this is probably overused, but I agree with what Martin Luther King Jr. said. I want to be remembered for helping somebody, not just wealthy people, but all people, poor people, people that I can make a difference in their lives. And then lastly, all of us should want this, that in the end, did we leave this place, this community, better off than we found it? Yeah. Because that's when you're going to make the difference in your corner, your community, your home, your city, this world. And Morehouse Legacy of Leadership says that you're born to lead, not just to get a degree. Yeah. And you're born to vote, but you got to make a difference. And so that's my goal every day, professionally or in the community. I want to make a difference, whether it's difficult or not. I want to make a difference, and that's what I want to be remembered by, the differences I made.
And you've made a difference.
All right, man.
Thank you so much for coming on the Rock Newman Show.
Absolutely.
God bless you.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, that wraps us up today. We'll hope to see you next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, make your dash count. God bless you.